This week we had a brand new Minecraft beta, and if you were wondering if it finally fixed the Bedrock Edition hunger system, then I would say that's an oddly specific thing to wonder, but also, yes, it did. The 1.18.20.25 beta came out this last week, and alongside a few changes to frogs, frog lights, and even the goat's horn, they also made some non-experimental feature changes, and that includes tweaked hunger depletion rate to better match Java Edition. This is something we've been asking for a long time, but in case you're curious as to what exactly that means, players will now properly lose hunger when sprinting or swimming, players lose significantly less hunger when jumping, and exhaustion rates can be tweaked in behavior packs. If after hearing all of that you're still confused, then the long story short is that the Java Edition had a different hunger system to Bedrock, and then they changed their hunger system to make it much less intensive, while Bedrock has kind of stuck with the same hunger system for far too long now, and they're finally changing it. This means that your hunger will last longer, you won't have to eat all of the time. However, they haven't made two key changes that I think they really should do to make parity of Java. One of those is that when you're at full saturation, i.e. you've just eaten something that's very, very filling, you should recover hearts quickly, kind of like this, and failing that, although I think that really they should add that because it exists on the console edition and it exists on the Java edition, I have no idea why they've been resisting holding it back to Bedrock, besides maybe waiting for the combat update that we still are, waiting for. And so the second thing I think they should do in the meantime is that whenever you heal up, you actually currently lose a little bit of a hunger shank. It means healing takes so long and takes so much food and hunger. It's a big problem, and I would prefer that they fix the hunger system a little bit more, but it's really cool to see that they made some changes right here. In case you're curious about other Minecraft news that happened in this last week, well, good news, you're in QnA Sunday. This is the weekly series where I answer your questions, such as this second one, which is, what do you think of what Lady Agnes said about fireflies being poisonous to frogs? If you missed it, Minecraft Now happened for the second time this last week, and although there wasn't a lot of Minecraft news, they did confirm a few interesting things, such as why frogs eat slimes in the current Bedrock betas, despite the fact that they said they would eat fireflies when they first revealed them. And like this comment hints at, the reason they aren't going to do that is because some varieties of fireflies in real life are poisonous to frogs, and Minecraft is a game that at least tries to go for accuracy when it can. However, because they committed to adding the firefly before, we are still going to be getting a firefly in Minecraft. It's just not going to have a direct interaction with the frogs. There's actually a really interesting thing here that we only are now getting fireflies in Minecraft, therefore, because at the time they were developing 1.19, the wild update at first, they assumed the frogs would eat them, but now they need to find a separate use for this very adorable 2-pixel monster, and I don't know what that's going to be. In fact, you could argue, should they just remove the fireflies altogether now they don't have a use, or do you think that it's important they add the features that they showed off in that trailer, and that includes fireflies, and that includes finding a use for something which currently is just a 2-pixel piece of ambience for the swamps? Again, interesting questions that we could ask, but we're not going to, because instead Prince L has the next question: can you have pet frogs in buckets? And the sad answer to this one is also confirmed at Minecraft Now.
Soap wants to know if you can put a frog in a bucket.
No, only the
tadpoles.
Yeah, frogs is a little bit too big to fit in the bucket, I think.
Yeah. Oh, look at the water. And I also like that since you only can put the tadpoles in a bucket, that kind of connects the system that the frogs are cold-blooded and the tadpole system together, which I think is really nice, because the easiest way then to transport frogs is to transport the tadpoles, and then you can transport them to cold or warm places to get new variants of frogs.
No, you cannot, and I guess that's why they call you Prince L. I'm sorry, I had to go for that one. Speaking of things I had to go for, this next question from Pikachu Girl, but spelt wrong. Wait, Canada doesn't use miles per hour. So this comment is from my YouTube stories, where I've been posting small clips and just little, travel shorts of what's been going on while I've been going back and forth across the US-Canadian border. And one of the weird differences is in Canada, they use kilometers per hour, whereas in the United States, it's miles per hour, which means that just before you cross the border, you're driving at 55 miles per hour, and after you cross the border, you're driving at 90 kilometers an hour. My brain has no idea how to convert those things, by the way, and also because I learned to drive in the UK, which, fun fact, if you want to know the countries that use miles per hour, it is the United States, Liberia, Myanmar, and the UK. I don't know why it's such a small club, but because I learned to drive miles per hour, and I've done the last, I don't know, 1,000-something miles in miles per hour. I have no clue what a car feels like at 90 kilometers or 60 kilometers, etc. And so, yeah, it was very strange. But yeah, Canada uses the metric system almost entirely, except all the weird ways they don't. Like, they use Celsius for temperature, but they're not for thermostats or for ovens, apparently. And, you know, I think the UK and at least America is all the way backwards. Whereas the UK and Canada have this weird thing where we, like, use some backwards measurements. And so you need to know ounces if you live in Canada, miles if you live in the UK, and, you know, I don't even understand at this point. Speaking of things I don't understand, this next question comes in from Maocat. It's funny that Minecraft is so unbalanced that XP and mob farms are just an ingrained part of Minecraft culture at this point. Game's over a decade old and it's still like this. But don't worry, because Mojang is hard at work adding copper and tons of useless animals to make Minecraft feel more lively. You'll never find the new animals, and even if you do, they'll despawn to extinction a few days after their chunk generation caused spawn and won't spawn naturally again for weeks. And, you know, it's funny, this is clearly a rage comment, but there is a little bit of, I guess, validity to the question of saying, why is it that all these years after adding experience, 1.2.5, in 2012 was when they finalized the current system, where you go up to 30 levels to enchant, and basically don't need anything above that. And so you might say, wow, you've needed 30 levels for this whole time, and we haven't really added engaging ways to get there besides XP farms. But the truth is, and I totally agree with that, I think there should be more engaging ways to get experience if you don't want farms, but I think farms are a natural part of Minecraft. Despite being against them personally and not finding them to be the most engaging thing, people have, since the very first time Minecraft came out, started to farm things that are annoying to get otherwise, and so in a way, making things easier to get invalidates their farms, you could argue. I don't think that's a good reason to not fix the systems, but I also think that saying that it's only behind mob farming kind of defeats that, yeah, people like the farming aspect, people love that they can have farms that bring all the things to them. That is one of the things that makes Minecraft partially like an idle or factory style game. But anyway, speaking of things that are factory style games, Mr. Mine Machine 8, see, he would be a game where he's a factory. Am I the only one who thinks there is almost no difference between Mangrove and Jungle Wood? This is Mangrove over here, this is Jungle Wood. I'm not going to say there's no difference, because it's got a tiny bit of an acacia hint to it, but I do definitely think that the Mangrove probably needs more of a different identity than they showed off at Minecraft Live. The good news, based on this sneak, trapdoor texture we saw last week, is I think they are working on those textures right now. Obviously, the thing shown at Minecraft Live isn't going to be the finalized version, because as we've seen, it takes them a long time to work on things. Something I wanted to point out earlier, because this sounds insane, is the fact that frogs right now, you know, those little frogs that eat slimes to reproduce, and they eat magma cubes. This little mob right here has 6 to 7 people working full-time on making it, and that's why we've seen it go so quickly, or I guess air quotes so quickly. It's taken about 2 months. If there are 6 or 7 people working on this, then there's hopefully at least a couple of texture artists working on making the Mangrove Wood something you want to find once you have it in your world. At least we should certainly hope so. I think that the finished mangrove texture is what we should wait for before, commenting on how boring it looks or whatever else, and then hopefully we can give some real feedback on that. Speaking of real feedback, Penguin O says, I'd stop letting the comments dictate your every action and just do what you want to do. Do what you feel is right. And yeah, thank you first of all. I appreciate comments like this that are saying, yeah, I see how everyone else here looks kind of crazy and they're being very demanding, and you don't need to give in to that. I think that's a useful thing to say first of all. But also, yeah, that is mostly my attitude towards the YouTube comment section. I do have to say that one of the things that comments will do to you on any social media is if you have a particular insecurity, or even the opposite, you have something you're very proud of. When you see comments, you'll use that for either confirmation bias, or it can also be easy to go the opposite way and just assume that, every mean comment is the truest thing in the world, because we naturally as social animals don't like that. But I think that I'm mostly good at tuning this out, or at least seeing when it gets through to me and ignoring it that way. The reason that I mentioned that, like, for instance, the exact change I said is instead of saying naught to represent a 0, I'm just going to say 0. I think in general they help me understand ways which I'm not being as easily understood. I think that is the key thing I want to do with my language. I mean, obviously there's always going to be accents, and there's going to be some regional things, like, I don't know, I say nappies instead of diapers, or whatever the example may be. Like, there's going to be a plaster instead of band-aid. There's always going to be these minor differences between how you speak based on where you're from and your experiences, and that makes us human and wonderful and blah 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 blah. But I also think that at the same time, being as easy to communicate with as possible is a key key thing if you want to express all of those other ideas that make you unique as a person. And that is why I realized, like, oh, this is a thing that is actually a barrier for people understanding me. Hopefully not a big one, but it's also good to remove anyway. Thank you for the comment anyway, Mr. Penguinito, and thank you to El Gran Beltran, who asks the next one. He didn't begin with, hello, I'm IBX Toycat. Andrew, you good? First of all, I'm doing pretty good. I'm currently recording this from Canada again. I'm spending a few more days over here as like the last preparation before heading home, making some videos and preparing for whatever the future is going to be beyond that. Some interesting things coming on that. But so am I good? I'm doing pretty good. Thank you for asking. Probably the best I've done in a little bit of time. But I think something about taking a break from any routine will do that to you. But the actual first part of this, am I good in relation to why is there no Hello My BX Toycat? Because this wasn't a real question asking if I'm good, which it should have been. Wow, how rude of you not to ask about my real mental situation. But instead it's asking why I didn't use an intro in that particular video, and it could be referring to quite a few, because it's something I'm trying to do more, even in this particular one right here. And the reason why is because YouTube is measuring more and more by the first 30-second metric. How many people can watch the first 30 seconds of your video? It seems like a silly one to me, but it's a way of, I guess, discouraging clickbait, because you immediately click off, things that are misleading. Maybe that's what it is. But either way, using the first 30 seconds of a video to say, hey, I'm IBX Toycat, and my name is, I'm in Vancouver, Canada, and did you know that the Queen is actually Queen of 13 different countries, or whatever your intro may be. I think that's actually a bad way to engage people who aren't already fans. Just like how the intro to TV shows is always so annoying when you don't like the show. It's just like, please, get to the thing itself. And so in the same way, YouTube is trying to encourage people to make the first 30 seconds as watchable as possible. And I've noticed the results. Whenever we just skip the intro, dive as fast into something as we can, it really does help out the video in the long run. And so that is something I'm doing a lot more of, and hopefully it's not a bother. I think there is a certain space for intros saying, hello, I'm IBX Toycat, and welcome back to another video on the internet. And I think that, like, for super long things like streams and maybe even, let's say, an upcoming Toycat podcast on Monday, those sorts of things it makes sense for. But sadly, for a 15-minute video or whatever else, it's not the perfect fit. Speaking of not the perfect fit, Frostbite Boss 24 asks about the fitting of seed fields, because Bedrock finally getting 64-bit seeds is amazing, but it would be game-changing if Bedrock seeds were to be completely usable for 30 million blocks in each horizontal direction, like in Java. That would make the world 10,000 times more usable. Do you think it will happen anytime soon? And the answer is probably not soon. It is definitely a goal they have, don't get me wrong. However, bear in mind the amount of play, like any single parity change they work on, it's about how much does this affect a player in the long run, and how many people have actually walked past the million block mark or so, where the Minecraft world becomes unusable. Not many. I am one of those people, I'll admit. But I have to say, based on the fact that people are already surprised when you mention, oh yeah, the Bedrock world runs out at 12 million by 12 million, and the Java world runs out, there's a big border, at 30 million by 30 million, I think 70 to 80% of players don't even know the world isn't infinite, and off the remaining 20 or 30% that do, it's more of a trivia fact than a real thing. Like, have you ever walked out there? I certainly hope not. Speaking of things I certainly hope not, hang on, but that's not true. You did a video on this a while ago, and the raw thing in the marketplace proves it false. The game can already emulate previous updates. Why not just add emulation as a world setting? And this is in response to them saying that the only way to load previous versions was to bundle them all into one executable. And this is actually a case where the developer talking about it was slightly wrong. Minecraft does have a very good set of functions where they can emulate older versions of the game. However, the key asterisk where, I should have mentioned this in the video, by the way, you're totally right, this is a cool thing to bring up. However, it only works for versions since the inception of the marketplace, and it only works for major versions. So 1.8, 1.9, 1.10, etc, etc. But I don't think you can undo bug fixes from 1.10.1 to 1.10.2, for example. And so, yeah, I do think that as Minecraft gets older and older, the number of versions they can emulate internally gets bigger, and given that they do that emulation for marketplace maps, by the way, to this day, even including the Let's Play, if you download it on the marketplace, it will emulate you back to 1.17, I think it is. You can't use the new height limit on the downloaded version, because, fun fact, it's just emulating 1.17 by removing internally all the 1.18 features. And this is something that I find beyond fascinating. But speaking of things that are beyond fascinating, let's move into this next question, which comes in from V 3man776. So basically what you're saying is that Java Edition is unionized and Bedrock Edition is not. Everything makes sense now. And this is a funny way to sum up that video, Minecraft's biggest mistake, talking about the version switching issues they've had. But actually, yeah, there is some truth to what that is, and that's kind of what the video is talking about. How, because on the internet we talk about, people talk about unions like left and right. They talk about it politically like they're the best thing in the world, or oh no, they take money and they make things worse in X way or Y way. But in reality, unions are objectively a way to increase the collective power of their members by bundling it all into one place. However, by increasing that power and getting what they want more often, getting what you might want more often, sometimes that's not always the good thing for everyone. I mean, if a particular group of Minecraft players, let's say the technical community, all band together and get very angry anytime something changes, it makes it much harder to change something technical, which is great when that's what you want, but it also means that it's harder to add something positive technically. It echoes what you sometimes see in real life. There is this ferry in London, it's operated at this huge loss because it's this public service, and so the workers are saying we should be paid more, and they're striking till they do, and now the people who need the ferry don't get to use it, the people operating the ferry don't get to operate it, and maybe they'll get what they want in the end, which could be great. I mean, should the ferry workers not have more wages? But then also you could argue that their duty may be higher than that, is to make something better for everyone else that isn't just a ferry worker, which is the problem. These things are very centrally located, which is why we generally use the democratic system, which is where everyone in a society gets together and we try to make things that are good for everyone. But then in reality we have political parties that mean that we're generally just good for one side of it. There's a whole bunch of issues with how we govern countries, and it kind of relates to how we govern even Minecraft, and the structures of shareholders and management and workers and employees and customers. All of these different groups of different interests also makes even that super complex. But that is actually where I'm going to end today's video, because you know what? Something algorithm pleasing gods. Do you see how we got roughly the 15-minute mark? And do you see how hopefully people are liking it? But no, thank you very much for watching QnA Saturday. I hope that you don't mind the lack of intros. I try to throw them in later in the video, like, a minute in. It feels almost like, where the TV show starts of the cold open, and then you go in for the da-da-da-da-da-da, it's the Toy Cat show, and we're here with guests, Toy Cat, and his special reoccurring guest who doesn't always like to show up, Sanity. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this, because I'll see you in the next one. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see that. Goodbye.